You'll come back. Hello, everybody. Pete Caliendo, Facebook Live, Baseball Outside the Box. Welcome back to another show. We had a great one yesterday on Sunday. Today is Monday. We're ready to rock and roll. We got a great show for you. Major League Baseball, Chicago Cubs hitting coach Anthony Iapoce. Now, a lot of you have heard him on my podcast before. We're going to try to talk about different things here. If you're live on Facebook, do me a favor, type questions. Any question you have. It could be on hitting mostly, but it could be on anything that you want to ask Anthony, and we will ask that question to him. We'll be great. We already got one gentleman joining us. Well, look, we're on a roll on Facebook Live. Anthony Iapoce, again, Iapoce Baseball. He is the founder of, and not only was he a hitting coach in the big league level, he's been with several teams, but also the special assistant to the GM. He's been involved in the minor league organization, so he's got a growth of knowledge. Played college baseball, professional baseball. He also played independent baseball. So it just keeps going, and we're going to have some fun talking to Anthony on the show. Anthony, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good, Pete. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I know you got a lot of young kids. Got to be a lot of fun right now in the house, but I know you get to go outside with your kids.
Yeah, under the circumstances, we're doing pretty good right now. We have a little yard where the kids go out and play. 7, 4, and 3, Lily, Abby, and Anthony. My wife's doing a tremendous job with the homeschooling in the morning, early in the afternoon, teaching the kids. Because my wife's a school teacher for 18 years, so she's able to do that while I could hang out with Anthony a little bit and keep him out of the way. But we're able to get out in the front yard and ride our bikes, to around the block a little bit when nobody's around, and then spend a ton of time in the backyard just doing different things. But it's also like strictly play, man. It's awesome, like imagination play, getting back to that, and
yeah.
Much fun they have doing that.
Yeah, matter of fact, that imagination play probably is really good for young kids in baseball. We need to go back to those times to kind of play on their own a little bit, have some fun, and learn from it.
Yeah, I think that's what you're going to see what guys are doing, because guys don't have a whole lot of room to where they need to work out. Some big league guys. Some guys are hitting in their basement, hitting in their garage in the nest, just trying to stay sharp and putting situations in their head, just like you did as a kid. 3-2, ninth inning, 2 outs, World Series. And you put that in your head all the time, just trying to see yourself being successful. So it's a great opportunity for kids to go out and actually play. And you're going to realize that you don't need all these toys that you need to play with. You could just go out and play with your siblings. And then also from a baseball standpoint, you realize that you don't necessarily need all these things that you thought you needed. You just really need to keep your mind right. Your swing's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to disappear. It's not going to go into the universe. It's still going to be with you. Keep your mind right, do situational hitting in your mind off the tee or flips or whatever you're able to do, and everybody will be fine.
All right, remember, if you're on social media, hey, we got a few guys. Kevin Wilson, our good friend, both of our friends, KB Baseball, as you know him very well. Hey, listen, if you got questions on Facebook, type them up, and I'll be able to ask Anthony the questions. A great lead into this would also be, right now talking about your players. They're sitting at home. I mean, obviously, some might have some pretty good facilities at home, that can afford it. Some may not. What have you been communicating with your players to kind of keep them sharp, either from a mental standpoint or from a physical one?
The main thing for me as the group is just to keep everybody focused still, that you're a phone call away from finding out when we're going to play again, to keep your mind right and keep the game right going, like you're going to play the next day or within that week. So a lot of the things that we talk about aren't really necessary about hitting or drill work or things like that, because there's only so much certain guys can do. And there's some guys have cages in their backyard. So like I said, some guys are hitting in the garage. Some are able to go out to an open field and do some stuff when nobody's around. So you can only do so much of that stuff. But as long as the guys are interacting with each other through things like this, through Skype, through Zoom, through FaceTime, and we're just meeting, once a week, just interacting and seeing each other and having fun and talking about different things other than our swing or preparing for baseball, just keeping the connections going. We do text, but we do that throughout the year, probably every day. So we do images, something to make guys laugh, to keep us going, to keep. The one thing I learned from this group of guys is how positive and how their perspective is to see that everything is all right in the world and in the city that they live in, and how can they help get the word out. And then baseball is like maybe 5th on that list of, preparing. So when this all ends and we begin to play again, they're going to be able to be ready to play and be ready to go. So it's not so much saying sharp in the physical standpoint, but as the physical standpoint, as far as working out, being able to be physically strong, I'm not really concerned about their swings too much. They're not going to disappear, but as long as they're physically staying in shape and their mind's right to stay forward and to help people out through this whole thing.
Yeah, and a lot of these guys, they've been through a lot. You know, they're older. They've, been through a lot of training. They've been through a lot of workouts and everything. So we have a pretty good idea. Similar thing, recommendation for your high school, let's say high school players, younger players playing travel ball while they're at home, things they can do, similar things.
Yeah, you just get out there and you get the work in. I think sometimes at a time like this, nobody's ever been through this. So
Yeah.
there's no right way. There's no wrong way. I think people are afraid of not doing a lot. They don't feel like they're doing enough from a baseball standpoint. Sometimes they'll go out in their head, and I'll get phone calls from dads in the neighborhood. What should my son do? Just keep flipping them balls. Just keep throwing the balls in the backyard if you have that, into a net. But really staying focused on yourself and really seeing yourself being super successful in those moments. The thing that could be a rabbit hole is that we could search for things. We could find things negatively wrong with my swing right now. I could search YouTube and Twitter and try to find all these things to help, and it may send me in reverse and may send me backwards in my development of my swing or my thought process. So it's really just staying focused on yourself and not feeling that you're going to be left behind, because everybody's in the same predicament. Whether you're hitting off a machine or you're getting more swings than somebody else, if you're taking enough swings to make yourself feel good throughout the day, that's enough right now. And just being able to learn through this whole process of what we can do more or what we need to do less at this time.
Yeah, you got a lot of people that respect what you do. Matt Lyle, one of the most followed people on social media when it comes to baseball coaches, calling you the dude. He loves all your stuff. And also Steve Springer. We all know Steve. He's on one of another great hit guy, mental teaching guy. Love Steve. What a super person. I can't name everybody. Got my good friend Mike Pinto on Facebook, manager of the Southern Illinois Miners, personal good friend of mine who is one of the best managers in the game. Currently in the Frontier League, but just outstanding CEO of the team. Hey, listen, Anthony, there's a lot of guys going to be on. Guys and gals, hope you got some questions for Anthony. Type them in the comments section, and I will ask. Another thing about throughout your whole career, you played at college, you played pro ball, played at indie ball, went on to minor league baseball coaching in the big leagues now. What do you think got you there? Some attributes that you believe that are consistent for people that get to a level that they want to get to. Not everybody has to be at the big league level, but a level that they enjoy. What are some attributes that you think are important for coaches to work on to get there?
I think the first attribute is you got to love what you're doing. If you don't love what you're doing and love the process of like putting in the work, that means when people aren't looking, that means when you're by yourself. I can remember as a kid just going in my back alley in Queens and throwing balls off the wall by myself. I didn't really need anybody to go play with. So I think that self-motivation was there. It was something growing up in New York, watching the Yankees and Mets. It was something that I've always wanted to do and then strive to get there. And the one thing that you don't have is a blueprint of how to get there. Like, okay, this is the big leagues, or this is a D1 head coach, or I want to be the best high school coach there is. People could tell you which way to go, and you could read, and you take all those things and process it and try and take little pieces from everything to help your way get there. But ultimately, you got to get out there and do it yourself. So I think, going through, I know what I wanted to do. I wanted to play professional baseball. And then through that process, I wanted to coach in the big leagues and stay in the big leagues. And you just have to keep growing, right? So you got to keep growing. You got to read things. I think most of the books and information that I use for coaching are not about baseball. They're from other sports, because you got to learn from other sports, because baseball is a non-contact sport. So you have to learn mentally how to handle certain situations. But also I think, just the whole way I got there, going to Monsignor McClancy, 1991 city champs, can't take that away. I know high school coach very happy we said that. And then, going off to Lamar University, where I never even heard of that school. I never even heard of Beaumont, Texas. Me and my dad had the map out on the floor when we were talking to Coach Gilligan, and he was telling us he wanted to come down there, and we had no idea where it was or what it was, So being in New York City, taking that chance and going to a place like Beaumont and Lamar University, and we went to regionals, and then from there being drafted and playing 11 years of mine, you just keep going. Like if there's something you want to do, there's more people, there's so many people supporting you at the time, but there's so many people like, why are you doing that? You're not going to be able to get there. You're not going to make it. Why are you wasting time? You're not making any money coaching in the minor leagues. You're not making any money playing in the minor leagues. Why don't you go out and do this? But you see the end game of how to improve. Or my ultimate goal is I don't know. Is it coaching in the big leagues? Is it hitting coaching in the big leagues? Is it managing in the big leagues? I just know I like to win and be a part of a team and to create that winning atmosphere to help guys and to create a World Series atmosphere. So one, you got to love what you do no matter what it is. I look at you fly all over the world and I keep up with you all the time. I'm like, man, this guy loves baseball, right? You fly all over the place and always
Yeah, it's
ask
not
me.
about, I can tell you this, not about the money, because the money is
I,
not.
I know. And then you meet so many people that you played with, you coached with, that left the game too early and are trying to get back in because they felt like they needed to make that money for them to find happiness. But their true happiness was in still being involved in the game somehow, which we are. So hopefully I can stay involved in the game for a long period of time. But I think
Absolutely.
to just recommend, just keep educating yourself. And today it's kind of dicey because as far as being a coach, everybody thinks you just need to be educated on the swing. There's so many parts of being a coach, or say a hitting coach in the big leagues. I never got into it to be a major league hitting coach. That's kind
Yeah.
of just where I ended up right now. I consider my coach first. If the organization says, hey, we want you to work with the outfielders and do the base running, I do that. I'm happy doing that as well. I just happy being around the team and coaching. But I think, like, as far as now, people get so involved with the swing, which is so important because obviously that's what makes you hit the ball. But for me, the swing was probably not necessarily the easiest part, but the most simplified one because, okay, here's your swing, here's the data, here's the video, here's the KVS, here's the information. Okay, now what do you do? Now where do you go from there? How do
Yeah.
you interact with the player? How do you know if something's wrong with them? And you learn all of that from my experience from roving for 6 years in two organizations. So you're working with over 250 players
Mm.
getting paid low money or more money. And most of the times I've had to go somewhere to check in on a guy, or they were telling me his swing was messed up. The majority of the time something was wrong, and you got to work from the inside out with the player.
Ah.
I think a lot of times we work from the outside in, and then the player's just going with it. And next thing you know, he has no idea what he did good. So
Wow.
yeah, you
Anthony,
just keep evolving. You just keep evolving, man. It's not changing or getting ahead with the times. It's evolving yourself to where you want to go.
Anthony, that fits perfect because of the fact that, we weren't going to talk about the swing today because we've talked about it so much. Like you
So much,
said,
yeah.
that's a small part. We may jump around a little bit, but, sometimes great minds think alike, and I'm just teasing. Kevin Wilson is definitely a great mind, and I'm not sure I think like he does. I'm learning from Kevin. But, I was thinking about this also. What's your advice, and this is Kevin's question, what's your advice about coaching in the dugout during the game versus coaching in a cage, in a batting cage?
Yeah, and obviously for Major League Baseball and minor league baseball, it's every day. It's the only sport where you have to practice and play every day. And so many people try to bring in, this is the way you need to practice. You need to practice more, or you need this. Like, the baseball game in 9 innings is so exhausting from an individual that the practice cannot be too stressful at times when he has to play every day. It's the only sport that's like that. So that's why when we give days off on guys, it's like a mental day just to have some perspective and get real work in, whereas instead of work or just their routine and then getting ready to focus throughout the game. But in game, in the dugout, it's more questions than anything because, all right, the bullpen guy comes in. Here's the iPad. Here's the information. He's a sinker slider. He's a high-low guy. Here's his velo, 95 to 97, four seams. He can't throw strikes. He can throw strikes, jump on them. You make the decision. You get in the box. This is your career, right? So you just prepare them. But you're more asking the questions when the players come in after they make an out. How'd you like? They'll ask you, did I pull off the ball? And I always say, did you feel like you pulled off the ball? And say, yeah. And I'm going, well, you're right. If you feel that, you're right. I can't tell you if you're feeling you're pulling off, or you're overcommitted, or you're cheating, or you're seeing a ball too deep, or you're overstriding because your anxiety level's up because it's pouring rain at Wrigley Field in April 21st and it's 40 degrees and you're just trying to find a way to get your batting gloves to fit right and feel right. All these things cater into your swing. So in the in game, as far as the information, that's being dealt with, but it's more of how can I get a guy or help a guy? How do we help a guy just be himself more and to squash the failure, understand that he's going to fail, but have an approach of what you want to do. So at least if you lose, which you're going to lose a lot, you go down your way and you learn from it, as opposed to you just guessing and changing your mind all the time and then you getting upset. So it's really trying to keep the heart rate down throughout the game. And in practice, it's just in the cage, depending on how they're feeling, what they're doing with the day games at Wrigley. We try to condense the work a little bit sometimes. So it's kind of where they're at. If they're playing that day, maybe a little bit lighter on them in the cage, or they may be a little bit lighter. If they're not working that day, let's bang out some curveball machine. Let's do some high gas stuff, because that's a stressful practice. Trying to hit velocity off the machine. So it's different. Plus, it's different from every guy, where he comes from, what country, how's he's feeling that day, how old he is he a young guy? There's so many different variables before you even get to the swing.
Man, it sounds like it's more about the brain. It's more about getting guys involved, getting them to give you the answer. The typical question a lot of times for younger players is, they make it out and they'll come back in and ask you, what I do wrong. And like you said, you go ahead.
Yeah, our players will laugh right now because I run away from them. And they'll laugh at it like, "Where were you? I couldn't find you." I was like, "I knew you were coming after me. Like I had to hide." Being Charmel Sledge, we get yelled at by the guys more than anybody. It's hilarious, man. It's such a good relationship, and in order to have that relationship where you could like let them vent and yell at you and just be like, "Okay, you okay? Are we ready to get focused during the game?" And as I do that, I have all these players in my head that would just be laughing about it now. So it's just keeping them right and keeping them with their approach. And sometimes you have to tell them, "Hey, how do you want to go down today?" Because we're so exhausted of trying to get hits. Hey, how do you want to make an out today? I learned Ian Desmond, Elvis Andrews, Anthony Rizzo does it, and a lot of guys do it too. Beltre does it.
How do you want to make an out?
Yeah, they'll just be like, "Hey, post today. I'm hitting 4 right-hander. I'm hitting Adrian Beltre or Rizzo. I'm hitting 4 ground balls to the opposite field today. I don't care if I get out. Like I have to be able to feel the ball getting on me. I need to stay through the ball a little bit."
Wow.
And they end up getting, but you take the hit out of it. And what I learned from that is like, they end up getting a hit because they take the hit out of it. Now they're actually able to do something in the game that they can actually almost control.
Wow.
Right? And usually end up getting an oppo double or a line drive the other way. And then somebody hangs a breaking ball and they bang it out of the park. But big league hitters have to sacrifice so many at-bats. Sometimes you got to sacrifice 10 at-bats in a row, a couple of games, just to get back to where you want to be. And you can't do that in practice.
Right.
You can't do it in practice. You got to be able to do that in the game and be good with it. Like today, I'm just going to break my knuckles today. Or today, I'm going to be out in front all day today because the ball's getting too deep. These are decisions you're going to make before the game while you're headed up to the box.
I'll tell you what, because you've heard managers say sometimes you got to lose the game to win the battle later on. And I understood that part of it, but I didn't the hitting part is unbelievable because it makes so much sense, because you might make a couple outs, but because of what you did, you're going to feel better with your swing. Now, all of a sudden, boom, you're on a roll hitting.
Yeah, for sure. And Riz is one of the strongest mentalist guys I've been around, and he could find a positive in anything. So even if certain guys get beat and they make an out, they come back like, "I let the ball travel," or they're trying to get the head out a little bit and they pull it, or they stayed through the ball but they made an out. Like, okay, it's coming. Okay, a little bit more. Inch out your contact point, back up your contact point. Get on top, get underneath, whatever those quick terms are, so that they believe in themselves is where we're at. That's coaching. That's just not hitting. That's with anything: pitching, defense, football, hockey. That's coaching.
You know what? I like to jump. Gavin been a good friend in South Africa. He's a national team coach there, one of the coaches. And it's going to jump a little bit to the mechanical aspect. Just a question on that. Is the best way to get youngsters to understand how to load correctly? So obviously the timing, the loading a little bit.
Yeah, I think the terms get confusing. Like if you use load or get back, young players are going to listen to everything you say, right? So if it's a high school kid or even an amateur kid, 8th grade, maybe even certain college, and we get that in the young guys in Pro Bowl, they'll do whatever the coach says. Like, I want you to be your best coach. I'm going to give you options, you choose it, and then we go after it. To simplify the mechanics of the swing, everything revolves around your first move. Everything revolves around your start. If your start is thrown off, if you get too much over your backside, you're either going to jump out there, or you're going to stride early, and you're going to spin off. If you could just stay against your backside and keep your hands still, your hands will take care of yourself. They'll load and stride to bounce and be ready to fire your lower half. But as far as load, it's just like you're standing up against a wall. You don't have to go back this way, right? You don't have to go back. Staying still is staying back. Mentally, that term comes out verbally, because mentally I'm trying to keep my hands back. I'm staying back on the ball. So you have to be so careful that when you say that to a hitter, maybe he gets stacked too far back. You know what I mean? So we want to be able to stay centered, keep my hands back, whatever that term may be. But I think kids just try to do too much too soon, you know, as far as their moves and things like that. The simpler and the smaller you keep the moves, the better off you are. You want to be able to get hits when you're not on time. You want to be able to get hits when you're beat, and you want to be able to get hits when you're out in front. Anybody can get hits when they're perfectly on time. So my swing has to be efficient enough to be able to do those things. The less movement I have and the better move I have going forward and striking my foot in the ground, the better I can make adjustments in game. When the ball's moving, you have no idea what's coming.
All right, Anthony Iapoce, Major League coach, hitting coach for the Chicago Cubs. Listen, folks, type on the comments any questions, because I know a couple of you are hearing like some background music. I have no idea what the background music is. Just let me know that you can hear Anthony well. It looks like you can, because you keep watching. So another question, which I also had written down. Man, we got a lot of good ones. From Mondo Blanc, how do you give confidence to a professional hitter when they're slumping? You know, they go
Mondo Blanco. Wow, that's a blast from the past. What's up, Mondo? How do we give confidence? Finish that. I got blindsided. Made a smile when I heard his name. So how do you give confidence when what was the end of that?
A professional hitter, big league hitter's in a slump. You know, he's
one. You don't use the word slump, right? Because you have over 700 plate appearances. A slump is used by media to write stuff when a guy's not doing good. Small victories, like doing what we were talking about before, where, hey, I'm just going to hit 4 ground balls, or I'm going to hit 4 low line drives at the pitcher today. How do you give confidence? You find one thing they did good that day, and you bring it into the next day in the practice, and you find something good that day, and you continually winning those small victories and bringing those little nuggets into each day. Something positive is going to happen, even if it's something like how he took a pitch, he power taked, he was ready to hit, he laid off that slider, 2-0 slider in the dirt with runners on base, but he makes an out later in the at bat. Hey man, that take, we're getting there, we're getting closer. But though it's always a player, major league players lose their confidence. We all lose our confidence, even as coaches. You're like, am I telling them the right things? And am I giving them the right thing? Am I giving them too much? Are we doing the right things? Major league players go through the same things, or else they wouldn't be that good to keep questioning themselves and then being able to trust themselves when they get back to it and work. And the majority of times they lose their confidence is because they're trying to do too much. They're trying to do too much for the team. They're trying to help the team win, trying to hit a 5-run homer with nobody on base. And then that throws them into a side spin. Now their swing gets out of whack. Now they work on their swing, and they don't know what they're doing. So it's just keeping the small victories each day throughout the game, finding something positive to take into the next day.
All right, folks, we're going to take a 2-minute break trying to drown out. We're going to see what this music is in the background. We'll be right back. Don't worry, it would take us a couple minutes with Anthony Iapoce. We'll be right back. Never had that happen.
I don't have nothing on.
No, it's not you. It's not you. It's not you.
Who's that, Lily?
It's me.
Huh?
It's me.
What is it?
There's water, and it's so loud you could hear you, but it's not loud enough. It's on his end.
Yes,
Yeah.
I have no idea what that is. That's why I've never heard that before. Let's try it again. That is strange.
And there was a thing of water across the bottom of the screen.
Let's see if we hear it again now.
So your wife, I'm sorry.
Man, there's always a first.
So many people trying to get in. They're breaking in, bro.
We got a lot of people.
They're breaking into the, what are they called? They're bombing it. Photo bombing it, or what are they trying to do?
Now it's telling me to rotate this. That's unbelievable. Never had that. Okay, cool. We're back on live Facebook with Anthony Iapoce. Folks, if you're there, give me a message on comment. We are back with Anthony Iapoce, Major League hitting coach with the Chicago Cubs. Give me a comment section. We will continue with the questions. Anthony, as we're going, let's continue, and then we'll get some questions here from Facebook Live. As we talk about, one of the questions was during the game, what goes on. I'd like to back up a little bit. I have a question about in spring training. Give us a daily routine that you have in spring training throughout the day, every day, building up to, obviously, the games.
Okay, so from my routine each day, and then going out with the players, so get to the field. Me and some of the coaches get there real early, probably like 4:45, 5 o'clock, right? You start your day, you go to the gym, you work out, all these ideas start coming through. For me, the most positive place in the building, which is the workout room. You work out with other coaches, you start talking ideas, and you're already set up for that day. By that time, you have a hitters meeting. David Ross, the manager, will run the coaches meeting, we run the coaches meeting at 7:15ish, somewhere around there. By then you head out right to the cage. Sometimes you have to miss to the cages. Sometimes you have to miss the meeting because of the cages. We have guys who like to get out there early, like David Bodie, Jason Hayward are our first two guys to the cage, somewhere between 6:45 and 7:15 in the morning during spring training. And that goes until that cage flow happens until pretty much stretch, which is 9 o'clock. So myself, Sledge, Juan Cabrera, a AAA, AA hitting coach, Desi Wilson, Chris Valleca, hitting coordinator, and Chad Allen are running the cages. I mean, there's 5-6 cages. We have players coming through in and out. It doesn't mean that every player has to go through me as the Major League hitting coach. Our players are really self-sufficient. They know their routines. I want them to get their work in and go about their day just to make sure that there's no clutter. In the cage, for then we go out and stretch. They have plan of the day. We do things like that. Maybe some type of offensive drill, whether it be off the machine or calling out situations, whatever it is for that day. Regular BP, they go in and then they get ready for the game. Guys who stay back probably usually come off. We segregate field one for curveball machine, fastball machine for guys who aren't playing. So it's solo work because they just sit there, 2 or 3 guys, and just bang out, 50, 100 swings off the machine. Or if they want to face a live BP, or if they want just kind of a coach's arm, if they're working on something to where they can control the movement a little more, so it's not so fast and challenging for them. Sometimes they just want to be able to feel what they want to do and control their body and control their moves off something. Whether some guys, we do routines on the field with the tee, flips, short pitch, side angle flips, whatever it is for that guy in that day. And then after the game, you start preparing for the next day, and then you head out. So that's when games start. I always tell the guys that the first week of spring training is really dangerous because you could have a bad BP and threw everything that you worked in the winter out. Or you go 0 for 3 in one game of spring training and trying to figure out what's wrong with your swing when you have all spring training to get through it. So that first week of spring training is keeping the players away from themselves, trying to deviate what they worked on. That's really challenging from a coach's standpoint, is to get these guys to get through it, to work through it, trust themselves, trust the work they put in the winter. And that's the biggest thing for spring training for me, is getting the guys to trust what they did. And we're fortunate enough where we have a lot of everyday guys who will break with the team, who really don't panic as much in spring training about maybe where their swing is or they're not getting hit. Mm-hmm. They look at the spring training games as practice to get ready for opening day, right? So trying to keep that mentality with the guys is a challenging part, because guys want to do good. They want to compete even in spring training.
Hey, folks, on Facebook Live, if you have a question for Anthony Iapoce, Major League Baseball hitting coach for the Chicago Cubs, I am here in Chicago in my house. And a shout out to David Ross, because not that I had anything to do with it, but he was on our 16U national team, one of our catchers. And I'll tell you what, watching him, all the interviews and watching him, just, I went down to Wrigley real quick just to say hi, real fast. He hasn't changed. He's a quality person. He was brought up well. He really treats people first class. First thing he said to me, and he hasn't seen me in 16 years, said, Mr. Caliendo, and he's just a quality first class person.
Yeah, David's great, man. Before you even talk about his coaching or his playing career, he's he cares about everybody. He wants everybody to do good. He really cares about bringing a group together, having everybody pull for each other, and having pull for each other for that W at the end. So he's been awesome, and it's like he's been doing this a while. And he'll tell you, his last few years as being one of the best backup catchers or the best backup catcher in baseball at the end of his career. You're a coach. You're a manager. You're going directly to the manager, to the pitcher constantly. You're talking guys off the ledge. You're talking to them, giving them confidence. So, and he spent a lot of that time when he's not playing, interacting with the guys, making sure the clubhouse is good and keeping that vibe going. And he's brought that. Nothing's changed. He's brought that vibe to being a manager, and it's I'm lucky and I'm glad to be a part of it to work alongside with him.
Great leader. I love him, and I think he's doing a fantastic job. Listen, the other thing is I wanted to talk about was, one of the areas that I think we all struggle with a little bit. You can go through all the hitting drills, you can through live BP and all that. Trying to get it to transfer, especially at the younger levels, whether it be high school, even college or youth league. Trying to transfer it into games, because I remember I worked on my swing. The mistake I made when I was younger is I worked on my swing all the time, right? And then I had a great swing, but just couldn't hit. So, transfer that, some ideas there to help our coaches.
Fear is crazy, so fear is nuts. It's the root of all swing and misses. It's the root of fear of being judged. What you try to do is create an atmosphere where they can practice with freedom and not be judged by anybody. So to be able to have things translate in the game is, I would say, the difficult, of all my coaching through the minor leagues and as a coordinator, the most difficult part about coaching in the big leagues is having the practice, getting guys to trust it, because you still have to win the game. So in the minor leagues, it's a lot easier to get guys to trust their practice because you can make a ton of outs, right, in the long haul, still 2 or 3 years, and then start to figure it out and go and take off from there. So you could sacrifice some things, but you make a lot of outs in the big leagues, you're not playing. So it's hard. So there's a dynamic to it from coach to player of how to get them to buy into what you're doing, or to get them to get you to buy into what they want to do, and still have the team not be hurt by what a guy's working on. So I think the player has to be all in, like 100% in on what he's doing, and understand that he's going to lose that bat. He's going to get beat. He's going to be out in front. He's going to be fooled, but to keep working at it each day. So the practice has to be so disciplined and so detailed, focused. I like to call it, like, when guys are practicing, it's just straight like meditation practice. Like, you're just working. Each swing means something. You're only as good as the swing you take, and you have to believe that. You have to believe each swing that you're getting better each day. If not, if there's a little bit of second guessing what you're working on, you'll never be able to take it into the game. Not in the big leagues. Not with like Matt Scherzer does not care what you're working on.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Like, Jason DeGrom doesn't care what your exit velocity is or how much your vertical jump is. He's going to look at you and he's going to determine whether or not you can compete in the box. So you got to be able to translate it and still compete. So when guys aren't going good, but you could see things coming before they can, right? Because you could see them practicing. You could see them getting closer. Swing's getting more efficient. The swing's getting tighter. The timing's getting better. They're holding their chest up high. Their confidence is getting better, and you have to fight through those tough times. And I think one of the most challenging things too, as far as that, is just trying to keep the guy's head up after he swings and misses or he makes an out. How long does a hitter keep his head down is going to determine where he's at mentally. If he swings and misses, he kicks the dirt. He picks up the pitcher right away. He's good to go. You don't have to worry about him. He keeps his head down longer than 3-4 seconds. He's searching. He's questioning himself. He's doing different things. He picks up his head. He does that. That trust factor's gone. So when I first started coaching, I had this huge absolute of hitting.
Yeah.
And now it's like people go, you're a hitting coach in the big leagues. What do you work on? What are the things you do? I said, one, I get players to hopefully trust their work and to make adjustments. And that's it. Because you could take 1,000 swings, like you just said, and not trust it, you'll never get a hit. You could take 20 swings, trust everything, go in there, and trust everything is going to work. Eventually, it's going to work out because you believe in yourself. But you can't measure thought and you can't measure beliefs. People don't think it's real. But when you're around big league players every day and you see the work that they put in and how they think, everything else could get thrown out the window. It's how that big league player thinks. I mean, it's truly amazing. to see an everyday major league player, whether he's an all-star or not, is the most impressive thing I've seen in my career. For a guy to go out and 700 at-bats, 162 games, get booed at, get yelled at, and still go up to the bat every game 4 to 5 times a night and compete, that's where it's at. But, to try and teach that, you could help the guys who already have that, I think, for sure. And that's where we lose guys. We don't lose guys because their swing's not efficient in the minor leagues. We lose it because they're either mentally burned out or they just can't handle the failure as much as the next guy. The best players always look at failure as a stepping stone. I know that's a cliche, but that's the truth.
Wow, love it. Hey, Anthony, has batting practice changed since you were playing to now? Are there things that you might do different in batting practice that you didn't do before?
No, I mean, even when I was playing, people seem to think that this didn't happen in 1994 when I was first got drafted, when we were hitting off the machine. I was very fortunate enough to start in pro ball, who actually taught me the biomechanics of the swing, a hitting coach named Ralph Dickinson in 1994-95 when he was our hitting coordinator. So I was fortunate enough to grow into there, and Males was a coach, John Maley, who was doing the biomechanics. Yep. 25 years ago, they were talking about that. So they were always constantly doing things like that as far as machine BP, calling out situations, short pitch BP, all this stuff. I think social media has opened it up to act like if it was new, but it's really been going on. I mean, if I learned some stuff when I first started roving and went to the Dominican Republic, man, they had nails in the bats, weighted basketballs, tape around balls for heavy balls, all these types of things that they've been doing for a long time in the Dominican Republic. So I don't think batting practice has changed as much. I think it's become more individualized instead of like a team. I think you can individualize it more for each player, each round, or some guys who just like to do it before and not be around the group. Some guys don't like a whole bunch of people around them. It's the only sport where you have to practice where people are 2 feet from your swing. Like, nobody runs out and stands behind the quarterback on a football field when he's practicing. Like,
that's right.
What, you're looking around and you're like, who's this guy? Why is he on the cage? And tell him to back up. I need to work on my like, people just think BP is BP. Guys are focused on what they want to do. So some guys like to do it early when nobody's around. And we have to do whatever we think is necessary for this guy to be good to help the team win.
Anthony, does Iapoce, you keep notes on guys, or is it just all in here?
Both. I mean, you have notes right now that I have a pen, that things that you say or questions you ask that I write down right now. So I would say, and coaches who know me or players who know me, like right now, these hands, see these hands be like there's a little mark right here, but during a day, it's all over. Like, I just have notes instead of trying to take out my phone. You can't be phoning the dugout. Taking out a paper, I just write it on my hand in big bold letters so that if I do forget, like at the end of the day when you're getting dressed, you go in a shower. Oh, Jason told me this, or KB wants to do this tomorrow, or remember this thought, Kyle Straub, or hold my posture, whatever it is. You write that thought down as soon as you can, and then you file it like in my notebook, or when we have our advanced meetings on the team, every few days or whenever that is, all those notes go into that meeting. So if last series we didn't play as good as we thought, we're going to bring it up. Things we did good, things we didn't do good. How do we get better at it in practice? And you let the players run those meetings, but you're constantly always taking notes. I mean, if you look at a hitting coach's desk or a pitching coach's desk at the end of the day, especially in spring training, to some people it may look like a mess. It's organized chaos. is what we like to call it. So absolutely.
I gotta believe out of all the jobs in the game of baseball, the hitting job has to be one of the toughest because, when they're doing really well, nobody's really coming to you, whether it's interviews or whether it's anything else, because the players are doing good. But then when the players aren't doing good, everybody's coming to you. I mean, it's almost like a no-win situation. If you can be a hitting coach, I would assume you could be a coach coach anything in baseball.
Yeah, I don't look at it. I never really looked at it as like a no-win situation. I always looked at it as like, I'm not the one hitting. Like, I've prepared the guys. I've given them the work that they asked that they wanted. I'm giving the relay the message that the manager wants. We're trying to impact the guys on and off the field. We're pulling together as a group. But I'm not the guy in the box. So you still go home and you question yourself, what can you do better as a coach? But if somebody's not hitting, I never really took it personal because I know how hard it was. I played in the minor leagues for 11 years. I made a ton of outs, right? And I played for a lot of different hitting coaches, and believe me, none of them stood in the box for me, right?
Yeah.
So you learn to, everybody says it's the hardest job in sports. I think it becomes hard if you pigeonhole yourself into one person. And what I mean by that, you see it today. You have to be Tim Cousins, coach for the Baltimore Orioles. We worked together as field coach with the Cubs. He always talked about being a hybrid coach, right? So you can't go, okay, something's wrong with you. You need to go see mental skills. Can't do it. You got to do it. Something's wrong with your swing. You need to go see the biomechanic coach. No, the hitting coach needs to do that. You need to go see the data, go see the R&D department. No. So you got to be a hybrid. And I think today you have this separation, and players understand this because they'll come and talk to me about it. So for the coaches who are out there, if you just label yourself a data-driven coach, the player comes to me and go, okay, he's not going to get me personally. He's not going to want to know what I'm feeling on and off the field. He's not going to know what's going on at home. He's just going to help me with my data. So he's just going to push that aside. And if a guy's just a mental skills coach and he does the mental stuff, he's going to go, well, that guy doesn't know my swing. He can't help me with my swing. So as the hitting coach, you can't be one higher than the other. You got to be able to mold everything for each player and what they need at that specific time. Like Ian Happ may need a swing coach today, but a mindset coach tomorrow, and a comedy act the next day to keep him loose. And then he might need somebody to put him in line. You don't know what they need. As the hitting coach, you have to be able to do all that. You can't rely on the manager. The manager's going to back you, but he's got enough to deal with. So having two coaches or three coaches and one that helps with the scouting and things like that, and we roll around each other and we do a tremendous job feeling off each other. But as the hitting coach, I think it's a tough job, just like any other job in sports. Like anytime you have to try to motivate players to work together as a group, when individually you have to put up numbers to survive in the big leagues, it's always challenging. But you're not the one out there playing, so your job is to prepare the guys, get them ready, give them the information, talk to them, be there for them, get them to believe that they're their own best coach is the one thing. When I first got into coaches, I never wanted a player to rely on me. I wanted him to know that I'm there for him, and here's some things we can do. But ultimately, it's your career, man. Like, if you don't get hits and we don't score runs, I could get fired or get let go, but I'll be okay. You know what I mean? You're trying to do damage in the big leagues. You're trying to survive and have a career in the big leagues. So ultimately, you got to make your decision. So being there for them, being a hybrid coach is the biggest thing I could recommend for any coaches trying to get where they want to get to, and not just sell data or sell the mental game or sell the biomechanics, whatever it may be. I'm an analyst. You got to do it all, man. Especially with these guys in the big leagues. Wow, man, these guys are tough, bro. They're tough players, man.
As Troy Silva says on Facebook Live, great stuff. Hey, love it. Folks, when you're on Facebook Live, you got a question for Anthony Iapoce, Major League Baseball Chicago Cubs hitting coach. Just type it in the comments section. We will ask these questions. Hey, listen, a big topic, in hitting, and I want to address it because, if you can't see it, I'm not sure how you can hit it. So what is some of the training that you guys work on possibly, or some ways to help players to identify the pitches better? Any advice for coaches out there? I know it could be a whole podcast on that, but some of the things that you work on from the vision aspect.
Everything you learn, guys. Some guys just want to track ball. Some guys just want to, whether it's off the machine, whether it's curveball. Sometimes they just want to see it. Sometimes they'll just not even swing and just stop at contact with the ball, so they keep their eyes down longer. But like, I think the vision thing is kind of tough because you got to see it before it happens. So you have to see yourself hitting a ball and where the ball wants to be before it actually gets there. That's anticipation and visualization. Guys stand in bullpens and things like that. But again, if your emotions are not in it and you're just doing it to do it, you're not going to get nothing out of it. Also having guys call out counts and sit on pitches in their practice. Maybe they're looking in, maybe they're looking away. But again, like, everybody wants to be able to get good pitches to hit, be able to walk, not be able to strike out, right? And we think we can just do this by a drill. But the best guys who are at it, say like an Anthony Rizzo, he hates striking out. So he's not going to do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, so everybody's like, how does he train? I'm like, Because he puts himself on the plate and he puts his heart over the plate and he's going, let's go. And I'm not striking out. That's how he gets better
Chokes up,
pitches to hit.
too. Chokes
Yeah, he
up.
chokes up. He chokes up.
Yeah.
And we started rallies that way. He's gotten on base that way. He's made a pitcher throw 7 or 8 more pitches. It's not about him working on his vision. It's about him going in there and competing and seeing what the pitcher's trying to do to him. But also certain guys who are really good at it, we always compare what we want to those guys. Remember, those guys have been doing it for like 15, 20 years from the time they're 10 years old. If we believe in the 10,000 hour rule,
Yeah, they do that.
10,000, yeah, man. If it takes 10,000 hours to master getting good pitches to hit,
Yeah.
you think we're just going to get him to do it in a year by doing a drill work? There's no way. It's going to take him another 10,000 hours. By then, he's going to be 32, and he might be out of the game by now. So we have to figure out what the players do good. Maybe he's an aggressive free swinger, and we have to deal with that. And each year, he gets a little bit better at what he wants to do. So these guys do different drills. Nothing uncommon to what anybody else is doing out there as far as coaching. You do what you can to see the ball longer. Mentally, also keeping your sights away from pull side over the fence too much. That'll help you see the ball better through the middle of the field, and then working on your contact point out in front. But really, you can also train your eyes visually or doing certain things and exercises like that through Dr. Harrison. He did things like that when I was with Toronto. He's a great resource for that. So there's all kinds of things you can do.
Anthony, talk about this is going to be good, I think, because you talked about it a little bit, but talk about the game plan as a hitter. The game plan obviously starts. You guys have your meetings, and you see your videos of the pitchers and all that, and you talk about that. Then where does it go from there? It goes to in the dugout and then on deck and so forth. What's that look like?
Yeah, well, today the players have all the data before we even have a meeting. They could pull up their at bats, what their strike zone box is looking at, how Jason Hayward was pitched last against Flaherty from the Cardinals. He could pull up all his at bats and show he's doing this, maybe he's doing this, and Jason could formulate his plan against him, because what he does against Jason maybe something he does different against Riz, another left-hander, or maybe he does something against Schwarber, who's a different left-hander, and then the right-handers, they're going to treat KB maybe a little different from Javi. So you have the team aspect against the starter, right? And it's usually what he's done in the past against you, the team, and what his last few outings are like. Has he been wild? Has he been in control? Do we need to jump on him? Do we need to be patient? Do we need to wait him out? Do we try and get the bullpen in? So all these types of things. And then guess what? By the first time through the lineup, you may have to change that whole plan, because guys in the dugout like, oh, that one's out. We need to do something new and figure out how to get that guy to score some runs to get us on the board. So you do the things and you show the bullpen guys and you talk about what guys might come in certain situations. Our left-handers want to know who's the left-handed specialist. Everybody else wants to know who's the closer, who's the setup guy. And then they want to know what the starter's been like the last few days. And that's what you're there for. So when we do the group thing, but you're constantly talking about the opposing team throughout your whole day. While you're working with guys on a tee, you're eating lunch. How's he been? How's he doing? Can he command his breaking ball? It's been off a little bit. Okay. So now those players start formulating a plan. It may not show in their practice physically, but mentally they're doing what they want to do in the game in their practice, whether it's in flips or whether it's in BP.
And when you're talking about young kids, the sooner we can begin talking to young kids about these things, about what they're thinking about, what they're looking at, the more important it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And hitters go through, okay, if a guy has 3 process simulation, can I eliminate 2? Or can I eliminate 1 pitch, make him a 2-pitch pitcher? If he's a 4-pitch pitcher, can I make him a 3? And you could do that in high school at any level, man. If you hit the fastball in high school and find a way to get into college, you could do that. But again, baseball is trending, right? It's the most highest velocity in the history of baseball and the most spin ever seen in the history of baseball. So obviously that's going to trickle down to college and through the high school ranks. So, but just being efficient through the middle of the field will help you see the ball longer, make you not spin off and pull balls, things like that. But watch the game, man. Like, I can't stress it enough to just, Steve Springer always talks about how many at-bats you can have in a game just by watching the game than you being so self-centered about your own 3 at-bats.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have your own at-bat and you make it out and you come back to the dugout, you got to process it. Okay, what did he do? How did he get it out? Did I swing at a bad pitch, or what happened there? And then you got to pick up the next player and watch the game to figure out what the pitcher's doing. And the pitcher can tell you everything just by his his body language. Is he confident? Is his head down? Is he frustrated out there? Is he pacing around the mound? All these things, that's what the best players do. They could read the body language of the opposing player and win before they even get in the box. They got the at-bat.
Anthony, we got a question from Kelly Morford. Here she mentions, can you talk about getting on plane and how you address that with your hitters? Our philosophy has changed over the last few seasons, where a fly ball is way closer to being right compared to chopping down. So basically, how do you talk about, how do you work on it as staying through the pitch?
Depends who you're talking to, right? A lot of times you have to change your coaching to each player and not them have to change their thinking to you, right? So you have to teach the way they learn. So it depends on our hitters, especially our guys who have power and can hit for average with our guys. They've been pitching a lot at the top of the zone. A lot of our guys now have been, over the last couple of years, telling me they're working from the top of the zone down. They're setting high tees up because it's the most in the history. It's 40, I don't know the exact percent, pitching at the top of the zone now. So you got to be able in the big leagues to hit the high fastball and work down from there, get in your lower half and get underneath the ball. So there's different ways and different things of staying through the ball or getting on plane. You got to be able to hit pitches that are doing multiple different things in the big leagues when it's coming in. So what a player thinks he's doing may not actually look at it. So you see a player who maybe gets underneath the ball, but in his mind, he's thinking about coming down across his throat and down through the ball and trying to hit a ground ball off the pitcher, but he hits a home run. That helps him get on plane underneath the ball. Sometimes guys try to get on plane underneath the ball. They pull off and they hit a lot of top spin ground balls. And you can't tell them to get on plane or get underneath. You got to tell them to get on top. Vice versa, guys who maybe hit some ground balls, you tell them to scoop it, get underneath, and not lift it, but that pitch that's down, get there, stay through it like the ball's glued to your bat, really stay through it and drive that pitch through the middle of the field. But different terms work for different things. I used to think that talking to a hitter about his swings and his deficiency was my job. But then when I learned every deficiency necessarily can't be fixed right away, and that sends the hitter into a spiral, into a panic, so where he's looking at video every day. So you want to use things, cues. I mean, there's over 100,000 different cues a hitter could use. But just because it doesn't look that way on video, everybody thinks it can be wrong. I mean, I've seen Hall of Famers, how they talk about, I'm very fortunate with the Cubs to listen to Billy Williams and Ryan Sandberg and Kevin Youkilis is with us as a specialist. And the things that they talk about when they were in the box, like, and they know it actually doesn't happen getting underneath the ball, but the things that they have to think about to hit major league velocity and still be efficient without making a ton of outs. So you're on the bench, different thoughts for different folks work. And you can't measure thoughts on how they get there. So I think the best players and the best hitters, when you're talking about getting on plane, have mastered simplicity, and they don't want to explain it in too depth. They don't want to get too deep in it because they don't want to get off course of what they do good and how they work forward.
Listen, question for you from Joe Quagliano. Thoughts on reopening the season, and as a hitting coach, will a shorter season change your approach? Pretty good question there.
I don't know when the season will start.
That's an
this thing is way bigger than baseball.
Yeah.
The only thing that us and the players talk about is staying safe, keeping their family safe, and how can you help out in their community or doing whatever they do charitable wise. So when you start, I almost feel guilty talking about when the baseball season is going to start because it doesn't really have anything to do about what's going on in society, right? When we do come back, I don't think it's going to change our process at all. I mean, guys are still individuals of what they want to do. Depends on where we're at, how many games we play throughout the season, what guys are going to do, what MLB is going to do. We're gonna go with the flow of whatever MLB dictates. My coach's style, our coaches with the Cubs, our beliefs are going to stay the same, and what we want to do as a team, and that's ultimately to win a World Series. So how are you going to train those guys in a shorter period of time compared to the longer? You're still going to have your values, right, and the things you stand for, and just try to be in that leadership position to figure that out as a group. That's something I can't even talk about right now. You saw the picture where I'm at. I'm sitting in the basement on my 7-year-old's desk.
I did.
I can't talk about coaching the guys when they come back right now. You know?
And I promised I wouldn't post that, but no.
I'll put it out there.
I think it was awesome. Hey, but the thing is, I know we got to beat the virus, and they're doing a very good job. People are staying home, but sooner or later, fans need sports. I think even if there's not as many fans at the game, just having sports on television is going to uplift people and keep them going and motivated. So obviously we're all fans and we're all, cheering that we kill this thing right away. Listen,
I think too, Pete, one thing like what people could learn is watching like, here you got the Yes Network and MLB in New York and the Mets, and they're showing all these old games. Like you could learn so much from watching games of how players did it 10, 15, 20, 40, 50 years ago. It's still competitive. It's still who scores the most runs wins the game. It's still, the pitcher trying to get the hitter out, and it's still the hitter trying to do things. So I recommend like watching as much baseball as you can on TV right now and learn what different players did instead of just watching highlights all the time. Go ahead and watch the games at full length right now.
Mm-hmm.
The best teacher of the game is you watching it and then playing it.
Absolutely. Hey, listen, here's an interesting thing. When it comes to the game, the history of the game, guys have been hitting over 300. They've been on base percentage, and maybe the statistics are showing that there's improvements in all of those. And I get that technology definitely helps to understand if you're teaching the right things at times, especially for younger coaches like myself. Let's say, how much technology do you use? And you have to be careful how much you use, especially with our younger players. It can be fun, the technology, but also they can be thinking only technology, and then the real game starts and it's not the same.
Nothing is like the game.
Yeah.
You could do live pitching, and we could have John Lester on the mound doing his live game against our hitters. It's still not even close to what the game is. And what I mean by that is the intensity of the at-bat,
Mm-hmm.
the intensity of the guy in the mound, your numbers on the scoreboard, win or losses in the column, trying to make the playoffs, trying to stay in the lineup. All these things affect the way you pitch or affect your swing at times. So we use tons of technology, always been using. Baseball's been using technology since whenever they keep adapting, right? They keep adapting when it first started with video when Tony Guerin brought it along, and then it's kind of evolved to where it's at now. But I think there's a fine line because I'm a coach for a team who coaches individuals to work together as a team. If you're not talking about team at-bats in your training, what are we doing?
Yeah.
All right. So I think we've made today's player the most selfish player in sports because everything's focused on them and their swing, the things that they need to do and to get their swing off. But there's certain times where I don't need you to get to the swing off. I need you to find a way to bloop this ball over the second baseman's head. Like, how are you going to do that? Right? The infield's in. How do I jam it over there? Or how do I work this ball? I just might need a ground ball right now to get this run in because our pitcher's dealing on the mound and they're not going to score today. Or for you, Darvish, we need 2 runs to win. I just need a ground ball with the infield back. Are we talking about that in our practice, or are we just talking about angle, velocity, and things like that? So, even when I used to do lessons at Mel's place, so we were going 7 days a week. Any lesson I did, whether it was we didn't have the data, but we had JC video. We were doing all these comparisons. It still revolved around, okay, the game. What are you going to do when this happens? What are you going to do when it's cold and when it's raining? This situation's on the mound. Technology can't prepare you for that. It can't prepare you for when you run on the field on a Tuesday day game at Wrigley Field and there's 40,000 fans yelling there. Technology can't do that for you. Technology can definitely make you more informative with your swing, where your swing is at. Well, a lot of times your swing gets thrown out of whack because you're trying to do too much. You're afraid to get beat in. You let the ball get too deep. Who's the pitcher in? And I think we still haven't been really able to measure that much in the game. We're getting there about measuring player swings in the game, which is where it's really at compared to practice. We do what we can with the technology in practice, try and bring that into the game as much as we can. But we use technology, whatever we think can make the player better, we can. But we also have to be aware as a coach to when it's not helping the player and he's disgruntled and he's upset and he just needs a pat on the back or a hug and he just needs positive reinforcement. It may not look right, but at least he feels better about himself to go into the next day to when you could present that technology maybe 4 days later about information. Because you could just run to him, hand him the information. He's nowhere ready for it mentally because he's thinking he's not going to play the next day.
Mm-hmm.
You could have this whole presentation, talk to him about his exit velocity, where his swing plane is, and all he hears is wah, 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 like Snoopy. So you have to be aware of that, of who you're talking to and when he's ready for that. And then you present it to when he's feeling good and go, this is what you're doing good. These are things that we can work on. We can maybe make it more efficient and go from there. It's just like a drill. Like I could tell people here, this is what KB does. This is what Javi Baez routine, who was vigorous and ferocious with his routine. And people don't get to see what he does. His side flips, his short pitch, his machine work, his left-handed swing, his right-handed swing. All these things that Javi does to prepare, like, then you got to read him and go, okay, I can present this to him right now. He's ready for it, rather than just run to him with papers and then he's going to be like, are you even watching me? Are you paying attention to what I'm doing? Like, so it's about the player. Sometimes when we come off with too much stuff, it becomes about ourselves as a coach, and players read through that, or major league players read through that right away.
Right away.
Sniff it. Then they won't talk to you for like a year.
Wow. Well, listen, folks, we are coming to the end, but you can tell why Anthony Iapoce is a major league hitting coach with the Chicago Cubs. He just didn't get there yesterday. He's put a lot of hard work into this throughout his career, and we are so thrilled that he's there. If you got any last-minute questions, ask him. I want to just give a shout-out to my mentor, Bill Percy, Colorado Springs ABCA Hall of Fame coach. Anthony's given us a lot of time. Anthony, a couple things. I think we're close to the end here, and anything at the end that you want to say. Anthony Iapoce, throughout the years as a coach, and some things you mentioned, but what have you changed as a coach? How have you changed as a coach throughout the years?
I don't know if I've changed. You always try to be yourself. Again, I try to use words like evolve or improve or continue to grow and learn. Those are all cliches, but it's real. That's why it becomes a cliche, because it's real. I believe in it. I think I've learned to process all the technology information that could be this much and then get it into here and make it into a 10-second conversation with a player. And try to weed out what information is good for them or they don't need to know. So that takes learning the players. And I think, like, being a coordinator, again, for 6 years, you work with all these different players. You learn how to handle players. You learn how to be with different players from all around the world. My first gig with the Rangers, I'm in my first time in the big leagues, the Texas Rangers. I'm coming from the Cubs as a coordinator. I walk into the Rangers locker room and you're looking at, Adrian Beltre, Elvis Andrews, Sinju Chu, Josh Hamilton, Prince Fielder, Robertson Chirinos, Ian Desmond, and you're like,
and they're going, who's this guy?
Yeah, and I'm thinking, like, are they gonna listen to me, really?
Yeah.
So you learn, but then you also learn being around really great players is they're gonna ask you right away, and you got to be ready all the time. So at times they may not want it, but there's times where they're going to want the information. Whether it's just like, hey, what do you got on my swing? Hey, you turn your shoulder. Okay. And then they go out and get a hit and they feel great. You never know what advice is going to work for each guy. So, but I think what I've learned is like to condense stuff and learn like how to bring fun and like energy throughout the day, each day with the guys during their practice and because Dave Rossi says it all the time. It's like, baseball is negative.
Yes.
It is a negative game, and hitting is negative.
Yeah.
It stinks, right? But you have to be so positive throughout the day. At a point, I would talk with Joe Madden last year. I'd be like, Joe, I blacked out the first 3 innings of the game because I was so exhausted from trying to stay positive with these guys in the cage. And you're just sitting in the dugout like, and then the players are asking you, because the players want so much. There's so much information. There's so much things out there. You have to learn to condense them. And then what you do learn from the younger players, they come in with the most stuff, and then they start condensing to less.
Mm-hmm.
They start doing less. But it's hard for people to really believe it because they don't get to see it every day. They just see the finished product on the field. They don't get to see what happens behind the curtain and the work that these guys put in emotionally. it's really fascinating. It's really lucky to see it and be a part of it, to where sometimes a guy hits a ball off the tee and you're like, wow, I wish the rest of the world can see what this guy's doing in his work. Because he could just say, hey, here's my routine. I do this, this, and this. And then some dad goes, this is what Jason Hayward does in his routine every day. And that kid does it, but he doesn't have the thought process of the drill of what he's trying to work on. Or else everybody would do the same drill. Everybody would do the same thing. But it's the thought during the drill that makes the player better. It's not the drill. And Derek Johnson got me out of saying the word drill. It's just straight practice.
You know what? That is great information. And I got to tell you, one last question, and then we'll close it off. For young coaches, at times you're going to have a situation, like you said, they're going to ask you a question. Well, you may not have an answer. Isn't honesty always the best policy?
Yeah, ask our players. When they come back to the dugout and they're like, was that a curveball? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. You're out, and they're asking you if it was a curveball.
Well, yeah, whatever, or was it high? I use that as an example. Like, did I pull off, or what's he gonna throw? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just watching the game, man. I'm a fan right now. Like, you need me, but and they're like, hey. I can hear Rizzo in my ear, like yelling at me. You're supposed to coach me. But I go, well, I am. See, you're coaching yourself. Go make your own decisions. So, but you got to, you establish that through trust, and they know that there's something good behind it. That when you tell them honesty, like, yeah, guess what? They'll come back and go, I stink, and I'm like, yeah, you do. Yeah, that's right. You're not very good right now, but we'll get it. Like, keep going. You got 3 more at bats. We got to win the game. We got 9 innings. And then vice versa. I mean, I'll come in some days where you're just like, man, I'm a bad coach, and they'll pick you up. And they'll be like, you know what, Post, you really are a bad coach. We stink right now. It's all your fault. So, that's brutal, honestly, just knowing that you're in it with the guys, that you can have it. But then you can also, being in it with those guys and being honest with them and not being pushy right away, waiting it out, really allows you to have truthful, honest, tough conversations with the players. And then they know where you're coming from. And then they could call me out as well. Our motto is no one gets offended. If you get offended, then you're not in it for the right reasons. Because we're all here together. So if you call me out on something that you don't like, you're probably right. And I'll make the adjustment as a coach. And the same thing goes for them. Look, I'm with you. I'm in it, man. You need to hear this. And this is where we're at. Now, how can we get better? Like, that's just coaching. It has nothing to do with hitting. Like sometimes a player just needs to vent, and you just need to agree with them sometimes, even though you don't agree with them right then and there, but he just needs to let it out. And then over the course of the next couple of days, you iron it out with them. But you always want to be honest with your players. But also I thought it was funny with all the data and how much you could break down the swing. Now you can't lie to the player. Right.
Yes.
So you used to be able to use lying as the player will, like, keep them out of their own way. A Springer always says, okay, my front arm's coming up, my front side's leaking. No. You're good. Just keep going through the ball. Right. But now, not with data. They go right to the data and go, it is. And you're like, oh, no, because it's going to take a while to get that back in order. Maybe with a thought in the game, they could get a hit and it puts them right back. Like, hits cure everything, even jam jobs. So, data has definitely limited out lying, which is not good for coaches because sometimes lying is good to the player. You know that, and we all know that. To keep them out of their own way, to staying off the computer for 2 hours before a game, studying themselves. You could look at video with data and find whatever you want. You could find it negatively or positively, and you're just trying to keep guys to things that they want to look at to help them grow with their career and help them, because all these guys. Everybody in the big leagues, anybody in high school, college wants to be good. Hopefully that's why you play. So you just try to use everything and condense it and just throw it, and then you learn from your failures and mistakes and grow.
I tell you what, you have taught us a lot here today. And one of the biggest lessons I got is under all the pressure that these guys have. And that's at the big league level, pressure to win, pressure to hit, and young kids have a lot of pressure because parents are there, grandmother's there, and everybody's there. But you showed us how to keep it loose at times, not only be honest, straightforward, but also have a little fun and relax and don't take it so serious all the time.
Pete, I got one thing on that, and I wrote it down because it was something that I wanted to mention. When me and you get talking, you know, the
Yeah.
Italian Americans, and
Yeah,
who knows where we go with it.
it.
One of the things I'm learning through, you know, in the United States, you know, we're losing high school ball to travel ball and whatever it takes to get the player seen. I get it, right? And again, players, we're drafting players who don't know how to play the game. They just know how to showcase themselves. You know, they throw hard or they swing hard, and you got to get in and you got to do those things to get in. But the bottom line is you get drafted by a team because the team thinks you can help win a World Series, be part of a team at some point. So you have to learn that team aspect. We're totally losing that, you know, on our amateur side. The other thing is what also I'm learning, and I learned this when I was roving, probably about 5 years ago before I got to Billies to Rangers. We're losing players because they're burnt out. So they're burnt out mentally from the game because they've been playing 60, 70 games. And they tell you, they're not going to tell the parents. They're not going to tell their travel ball coaches. They're going to talk to somebody once they get somewhere where the struggle is hard, like in the minor leagues where you really fail for the first time. And they're burnt out because they played 60, 70 games a year. The burnout doesn't happen at 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. It happens sometimes in college, sometimes in high school. But minor leagues, we lose guys not because they're not good enough, because they're burnt out and they don't want to play no more. And you're starting to see that in the big leagues now where players are playing and emotionally they're drained because if you have a 20-year job and you work for the city, you could retire.
Sure.
Right? So you start playing, you know, 70 games at 8 years old, 7 years old. By the time you play 15, 20 years, like, believe it or not, the majority of kids, they don't want to play no more. So there's such a fine line, and we're seeing it as kids get older through the minor leagues when we talk to our coaches, and we're starting to see it now dribble into the big leagues. Certain players are like, dude, I'm done. Like, I'm spent. I don't even want to play because it's taken so much. They look back maybe their life of how much they sacrificed, and they're like, whoa, I missed my whole childhood because I was on the road playing games that, you know, who knows if they matter. If you're good, they're going to find you. Scouting is gonna find you. When I was with the Rangers, at one point we had 8 players from 8 different countries on the field at one time. And the first baseman at the time was a kid named Ryan Rua, who was from a Division II school out of Ohio. Okay, so if the kid loves it and plays it, everybody's going to have a different journey to get to where they want to go, and we got to support that. Not everybody's going to get to the big leagues or Division I the same way. You have to take a different route, but you will get seen, and you will get there if you believe it. You'll get seen. Is what I'm saying. So it's really challenging out there for parents right now. And I spend a lot of my time talking to parents about it because I did travel. I coached travel ball. I did lessons, 6, 7 days a week at Miles's place. You know, we were doing 70 lessons a week, training travel ball teams for his place. So, and you learn, like, over time, did it really help? The good kid when he came in at 9 was still the good kid when he was 18. It wasn't like we helped develop him. That's silly. He was going to be good no matter where he came from, you know. And I learned that working with guys like Shinju Chu from Korea, you know, like, he made it to the big leagues through the minor leagues. He was the only player who ever did that from South Korea. Like, you're going to get there. So, I mean, that's the biggest piece of advice I give to parents, because parents are scared. You shouldn't be scared of your kid playing baseball.
Hey, Steve Springer just gave you the knuckles. He said, players don't get missed. And boy, do I agree with that 100%. Good players will be found. Just keep working hard. Hey, Pose, last thing. Listen, I'm going to leave it to you. Any last advice? Because I know you also had some notes that you wanted to mention some things. Any last minute advice for our coaches, players in the U.S. and around the world, and also our parents?
I think just letting, as far as the young part and the amateur part, is helping the players develop a sense of themselves. And when you start coaching them up at an early age, like you said, don't let them rely and ask you. I was always nervous when I was roving and I would walk into a city and the player would go, "What do you got on my swing?" Like, right there was always a red flag for me. That player was not necessarily as confident. He was concerned about what other people were thinking about him. He always felt he was being judged, and all those things that makes it really difficult to get in the box and compete to hitting a baseball, which is, I think, is one of the most difficult things in sports. So to really help the player develop to be his own best coach, ask him questions more than you give him the answers. If I could, people always ask me, "What do you do?" I say, "I'm a professional interviewer." You know, I
Exactly.
didn't play in the big leagues. I can't tell you what it's like to step in Game 7 of the World Series against the Cleveland Indians. I wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have to talk to these other players, or you're going to have to talk to past players or Hall of Fame guys or past minor league coaches who played in the big leagues to get that perspective. And it may not always be about the swing, right? And the swing helps us get there, but it's just your thought process develops your swing. How you think about yourself and how you want to hit the ball develops your swing. So, again, parents and coaches, whatever, help the player be the best version of themselves. Ask questions first. Do not give the answer. Even if you're looking at data, go, hey, what do you think you see here? What do you think you can do? How do you want to get better, right? Because when a player feels good about his development, he moves faster. He trains better. He trains clearer. It's hard enough to hit the ball with some clutter. It's hard enough to hit the ball when you have a clear mind, but when you have a little bit of clutter and you have clutter in your practice where you're not all in on what you're doing, you can forget it. You can forget it, man. You can take 1,000 ground balls and it's not going to matter if you don't trust yourself and you're not clear on what you're working on. So be specific, simplify it. Also make it challenging at times, but you can't make it challenging all the time because also they need a breather mentally. Sometimes they just need to go out. Like, this is a great time for, as Euclid always says, wiffle ball in the backyard. And it's awesome, right? What other better tool than throwing the ball and wiffle ball? So, not everything. And I think also, like, be careful of giving mechanical cues every single swing. Your elbows up, your elbows in, your hips up, your head's up, your chin's down. Look up. The sky's blue. The car's red. Look at that bird over there. Like, really? I need to try to hit this ball as hard as I can right now over this pitcher's head to keep myself in the lineup. So in practice, and then also be aware of, don't necessarily ask the player when they're doing a drill, how does it feel? Because young players, amateur players, even pro guys are going to give you the answer you want to hear because they want to please the coach. Be very aware. Beware. We're at an all-time high of people pleasing because of Generation Life, because you want to like everything on social media. So you want people to like you, and it kind of backfires on the young generation when it comes to their swing because they're going to do whatever the coach says. So I think you put it on, and I always ask them, like, what do you think? Like, what are you thinking about right now? Not what you're feeling, because then they might be talking about their own. Like, what are you thinking about this moment to continue? How do you focus every single pitch, right? And focus just means throwing everything else in the world that matters into your moment right there and really being stuck in that moment. So let a kid hit 3 or 4 not good before you jump down his throat and trying to fix every swing, see if he can manage it by himself and make adjustments, because you're not getting in the box with the hitter. He's going to have to make adjustments in the box. If he can't do it on his own in practice, he has no chance in the game about making adjustments. So enjoy it again. Really have fun, dude. It's awesome, man.
Great advice. Let me tell you, this was explosive. And I got to say, I remember when I was younger, where we were always teaching, talking too much. I think that's something that's changed in the game for the better. And that we need to keep emphasizing that, asking questions to our players, getting them involved. Pose, this is awesome, man. Got to thank you. And folks, yes, another Italian American on the show. It just happens by accident. I guess I can't help it.
The best heavyweight, pound for pound, the best heavyweight fighter in the world, Rocky Balboa. He is in the Hall of Fame. Pound for pound, Balboa.
There you go. Pose, thanks, man. You're awesome.
All right, brother. Appreciate you.
All right, folks. That is Anthony Iapoce, Chicago Cubs Major League Baseball's hitting coach. He is awesome. Did a great job.